All right, Robert. Well, welcome. It's very nice to have you here. The Center for the Study of Tennesseans and War is founded to capture the stories of people who have lived in our region for any amount of time. We consider all those people to be Tennesseans who have been involved in war in some capacity. And it's our mission to record those stories and preserve those stories and then share those stories with other people. And we're very, very happy to have you and happy to talk to you today about your life and your military service. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were born? Can you paint a picture of the time and the place?
Well, the time was long, long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I was born in 1946, so in a small town called Hohenwald, Tennessee, which is in Middle Tennessee.
Mhm,
It's close to the border of what they consider the western part of the state.
mhm.
It's spelled Hohenwald, which is a German word for high forest.
Hmm.
It was settled by Swiss and German settlers, I think in the 1870s, if I remember correctly. That's when the town got. It was originally called New Switzerland, I think.
Hmm.
And then they changed the name after to Hornwall after a few years. I don't really know the full history as well as I would like.
And when were you born there?
1946, September 10th.
1946 in September. And can you tell us a little bit about that place? Was it a rural place? What was there manufacturing, many people? Did you have a lot of neighbors?
I'm guessing that the population at that time was probably around 1,500
Mm-hmm.
in the town, and maybe the whole county had 3 or 4,000. It was in Lewis County.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's grown a little bit since then, but not a lot. The population of Hornwall is still probably around 2,000 even today, but the county has grown more. There may be as many as 10,000 going on in the county.
Okay. And your parents, what did they do?
My father was, well, an electrician when he was working, but he was not always working.
Mm-hmm.
He had an alcohol addiction, and actually because of that, we ended up moving frequently because unfortunately he would lose his job. He served in World War II.
Hmm.
And according to my mother, he didn't drink before he went to the service, but when he came back, he couldn't live it alone.
Mm-hmm.
But he was born in Columbia, Tennessee, and my mother was born in Central Tennessee. Both of those towns are relatively close to home, within 30 minutes.
And was your dad in the Army?
In the Army.
Okay.
And he actually served part of that time in the Army Air Corps.
Hmm.
He was in there, I remember these dates, October 42 to October 45. He was in there 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, there's a new series on Apple TV called Masters of Air that gets at the Army Air Corps in World War II. I've watched the first 2 episodes and it's something else. So, and your mom, what about her?
Well, neither of my parents earned a high school diploma. They left school early to help their parents make a living.
Mm-hmm.
But they were both pretty smart people. And my mother was very hardworking. And I had 2 sisters. And I guess we were really probably down at the bottom of the middle class or the upper part of the poorer level. But we never felt like that because we had everything all the other kids had. But that was due to the hard work and sacrifice of our mother.
Mm-hmm. And anybody else in your family with military background?
I had an
Grandpa?
uncle who was actually in the Pacific during World War II in the Navy and actually took part in what was called the Marianas Turkey Shoot, that battle.
Okay. And did any of that military service in your family kind of influence your own decisions and your own thoughts about?
No.
No? Okay. So then you grow up here in the middle part of Tennessee. when do you start to think about the military? Is it in high school? Is it after high school?
Well, I wanted to be a scientist, but that's the route I took when I finished high school.
Yeah.
But honestly, I was not a good student. I was distracted by other things. I was playing in rock and roll bands.
Hmm.
Oddly enough, I've spent a lot of time studying chess and playing in chess tournaments. And
Mhm.
that seemed to be more important to me than studying and making good grades.
Mhm.
Which I guess all is even more unusual because I was paying my own ways in college. So I would pay my own way, but then I didn't study enough to make the grades necessary to be proud of it.
Did your interest in science kind of come out of your father's work as an electrician?
No, my
Okay.
parents gave me a Gilbert chemistry set.
Hmm.
It's 10 years old.
Hmm.
As a Christmas present. And I think from that point on, I was a chemist.
Okay.
But like I said, there were other distractions and things that took me away from that. And
Yeah.
what made me start thinking about seriously joining the military was I lost two friends both in July 1968. They were from Bournemouth. And I don't know if you want to hear names or not in this interview, but
Sure. Yeah.
that's okay.
That's just fine.
One was a fellow by the name of Sammy Brewer, and he was in the Army. The other one was a fellow by the name of Penny Bennett, who was in the Marine Corps. And both were killed in July of '68. And I've been watching TV and watching like everybody else, watching the news broadcasts about the war in Vietnam and watching the broadcast discussing that. You can see it on TV every night. It just bothered me a lot. And finally, I just decided I want to go to Vietnam for myself and find out what's really going on.
And this
So
is in 68.
people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is in 1968.
This is 1968.
Yeah.
But I talked to different people on what is the fastest way to get to Vietnam, and they told me join the Marine Corps. So I actually signed up with the Marine Corps I think it was February 1969.
Now, had you had a college degree at that point?
I did not. No.
Okay.
I had at this point I'd been out of college, out of high school, 4.5 years.
Okay.
I had probably 1.5 to 2 years of college credit with about a 1.5 GPA.
Okay.
But I knew I was told that was the fastest way. I joined in February of '69, but I didn't actually show up for boot camp until May because I had some debt and some other issues I needed to take care of before I could go. So I actually entered boot camp in early May 1969.
Now, do you remember going into the recruiter's office?
Well, it was in Nashville, Tennessee, but I don't remember any names.
Okay. And do you remember if they gave you any sort of incentives or any bonus for walking in there and volunteering to go over to Vietnam?
Well, they said since I have some college, was I interested in becoming an officer?
Hmm.
And I said, well, maybe.
Hmm.
Maybe. They said, well, once you get in there, you can take the exams, and if you make a passing score, they could send you to the officer candidate school in Quantico and become a second lieutenant. So that was a little incentive, but my main incentive was just to get in the Marine Corps and go to Vietnam at the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's wise or not is another issue for debate.
Yeah.
But I entered the Marine Corps, and normally a Tennessean would go to Parris Island. When I joined, Parris Island was full. Because apparently in '69, they just didn't have enough Marines to complete the roster of all the units.
Hmm.
That were, so and I didn't find this out until later, but they even cut boot camp short for us for about 2 weeks. I think just because there was a shortage of Marines in Vietnam.
Wow.
But because Parris Island was full when I went in, they sent me to San Diego. There are 2 boot camps, Parris Island, San Diego. So I was with a group of Tennesseans and some people from Kentucky that left out of Nashville, and then we flew to San Diego to begin with.
Have you ever been to California before?
At that point, never.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did your family think about your decision to join? And then what did they think about you leaving and going to California?
I think my mom had a little concern. I don't think she really approved of what I was doing, but she probably didn't approve of some of my other behavior either.
Yeah. And
But
what
she,
about what about your dad or your sisters? What did
um,
they think?
I think they were saying, no, just well, you be careful, you know.
Yeah.
And I know later, years later, talking to my younger sister, said, you know, to her, it just never entered her mind that anything bad could happen to her.
Is that right?
Right. But later, as she realized, you know, the casualties and everything else, she matured more and she
Yeah.
realized it could have happened. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're over in San Diego and you're doing your basic training there.
right.
Um, what about that officer business?
Uh,
Did that
I,
just kind of go away?
I took the exams, and that's when I found out that for them to send me to Quantico, I joined. I don't know when they started this, but somewhere in 68 or 69, they started, you could join the Marine Corps with a 2-year enlistment, a 2-year commitment. When it came time to go to Quantico to become a lieutenant, that's when I was informed I had to sign up for 4 additional years, which really, it makes sense. They don't want to invest a year and a half in training a new lieutenant and then have them leave immediately.
Yeah. And so what did you do about that?
I turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, when I joined, my main incentive was to get to Vietnam, and this was going to delay me getting to Vietnam for about a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. And so after San Diego, what happens then since you're not going to Quantico?
Well, then I went to, and I forget the order. One was called Basic Infantry Training, and one was Advanced Infantry Training.
Mm-hmm.
Probably BITS first. I went and spent a month at Camp Pendleton doing Basic Infantry Training, and then my MOS was 0311, which is an infantryman.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent me to Advanced Infantry Training. That was also a Camp Pendleton for me.
Okay. And what did you think about that experience? What
Well,
do you remember
it
about
was
that?
better than boot camp.
Yeah.
But you know, it was hard work because they were still trying to get us in the best physical condition that they could. So we did lots of uh, hiking or route stepping, you know, for many miles through the Camp Pendleton, lots of big hills.
Yeah.
They're trying to get you not only to learn infantry tactics, but to keep you in the best physical shape that they can.
Well, what kind of physical shape were you in? You're in your 20s at this point, right?
Well, I was a little bit old to be joining the Marine Corps. I was
Mhm.
22 when I joined.
Mhm.
And I turned 23 just a couple of months before I arrived in Vietnam.
Mhm.
Uh, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
No, so you're in this training, it's physically demanding, and I think you're looking around yourself and you're seeing younger dudes.
oh yes. Well,
How were you able how were you able to handle all that? Did you
when I entered boot camp, I was probably 10 pounds over, 10 or 15 pounds overweight, but that came off quick.
Mhm.
So they actually got me in pretty good shape even in boot camp.
Mhm.
And they have a physical that you have to, a physical test that you have to go through. I think it may be called a commandant's physical test or something. I don't know. But you had to run 3 miles in under a certain number of minutes. You had to do so many push-ups in a certain amount of time, sit-ups, other things. You had to be in pretty good physical condition.
Yeah.
So I achieved that. And if you didn't achieve that, you could actually stay in boot camp longer. They send you to a place called the hog farm if you can't meet the physical standards. And all you do there is you stop your training, you just do physical workouts all day. So
Yeah.
you don't want to go to the hog farm. But the infantry training that continued that physical part of the
Yeah.
training, and you just slowly increased even better your physical durability.
Now, as you're going through this training, are you preparing to deploy or preparing to go overseas? Um,
Well,
are you hearing news about Vietnam and what's going?
I was kind of cut off from news, really.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
while we were doing infantry training, sometimes we would get a weekend off. So when you're in boot camp, there is never a day off, ever. But at least in infantry training, you occasionally can get a weekend pass. You could go into Oceanside or was it Clementine, some of the nearby sea resort cities.
Yeah.
And do
Yeah.
something extra and have a little fun on the weekend.
Yeah.
But after the advanced infantry training, I was sent home for a 20-day leave.
Okay, so you come back to Tennessee
I came back to, I was living in Nashville at that time.
and you saw your family?
Saw my family, spent time with family and friends for
Okay.
20 days. Then I returned to California to what they call staging battalion. And there I spent about another month, still more infantry training. You get this exposure to other weapons. When you're going through training, you're just exposed to M14s and M16s.
Yeah.
Here, now you're getting exposed to M60s and radio technique and other things. So,
And did that training in that time away from Tennessee and away from your family, did that diminish your desire to get over to Vietnam?
no,
Okay. You're still
I'm still ready to go.
determined to get over there and see what
Yes.
exactly is going on.
And probably most of the people that had an infantry MOS, 0 through 11, probably went to Vietnam. There were other people who maybe committed to longer terms of service to the Marine Corps, and they got training in other areas, maybe technical areas.
Yeah.
But most of the infantry probably went to Vietnam immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're probably aware of that. And maybe you're writing letters back home too.
I'm writing letters, not with a high frequency.
Yeah.
Certainly when I got to Vietnam, they encourage us to write home frequently.
Yeah.
Because that just reassures your family that you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then what's next here after your training?
Well, then we went to staging battalion.
Yep.
And then they put us on commercial airliners and we flew to Hawaii, stayed about 45 minutes, refueled, and then flew to Japan, Okinawa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At Okinawa, we stayed about 4 days. We got gamma globulin shots for hepatitis, I believe it was. So you had about 4 days, it would make you limp around after you got that shot in the hip. So
Yeah.
they get 4 days there to recover. Then from Okinawa, I was sent to Da Nang.
And what did you think when you're in Japan? Are you at this point you're close?
Yeah,
Are you anticipating getting in there and seeing what it's all about, or are you getting nervous being in Japan for
at this
4
point, I was still looking forward to getting
Okay.
there.
Yep.
It was also, I guess, in my mind, a little bit adventurous.
Yep. Yep.
Going to this new, up to this point, I had never been outside the United States. So
Okay.
here I am in Japan. Now I'm heading for Vietnam
Yep. Yep. As a Marine.
as a Marine.
Okay. And so then take us into Vietnam.
I'm sorry, say again.
So then take us into Vietnam. What was it like when you first got there?
Well, while I was still in staging battalion in California, we received our orders. And I was told I was going to be going to something called the Combined Action Program. But I had no idea what that was. So once we got to Da Nang, we were immediately transferred to what they call the Combined Action Program School. And it was right on the South China Sea. When we would guard duty at night, we were looking out across the ocean. But we spent 2 weeks there. Here they taught us some Vietnamese language skills, as much as they could teach you in 2 weeks. Tested us on how to the right protocol procedures for handling radio duties, how to change the barrel on the M60 machine gun, other little things they felt like you might need to know.
Yeah.
So I spent that 2 weeks there, and now for the first time we're leaving and we're being reassigned to our units that we're going to serve.
Yeah.
So after that 2 weeks, I'm transferred to an airport and put on the C-130 and fly to Phu, which is north of Da Nang. I'm going to guess it's probably only maybe 40, 50 meters from the DMZ, kilometers from the DMZ. But it's just south of Hue City, the Imperial City. Maybe 10 kilometers south of there,
Mm-hmm.
10 kilometers.
Yep.
Ever heard of Wade when previously?
Yep. And your first impressions here?
Well, at this point, I'm still wearing our green fatigue uniforms. When I get to Fubai, I'm immediately issued camouflage uniforms. And I that's issued an M16, magazines, ammunition, other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was only there maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days at most. It was nice there at Fubai because they had a mess hall, you could get hot food and slept on bunks.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was sent to the company headquarters for the unit I was going to serve with, which was just 3 or 4 kilometers north of Fubai.
Mm-hmm.
There, I met the captain of the company and a couple other Marines. And then I was told I was going to be sent to Cap 334. I probably spent a few hours there, and then a Marine had walked in and picked me up, and we walked together back to the area of operations for Cap 334.
Mm-hmm.
In this company, there were 6 cap units. We bordered each other, but we each had maybe 4 to 5 square miles that we stayed in. We knew where our borders were. We didn't go across the border into another cap AO or that area of operations without consulting with them first, letting them know we're going to be. That's so they wouldn't be shooting us when we came across their border.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when I joined 334. I guess I made a classic mistake here. Somebody called me Bob, and I told them my name is Robert. I don't like to be called Bob. And of course, you know what they called me from then on. I was Bob the rest of the time I was in Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So
Also referred to me as the old man. There was only one person there older than me, and that was a foreman. I was 23. I had just turned 23, but probably the average age was somewhere between 20 and 21. I think our youngest was probably 19.
yeah.
And then there was a corpsman, I think it was 24. So I was the second oldest there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you went over to Vietnam, you entered the military and you went over to Vietnam because of your 2 friends who had died. Just being over there, just getting in country, do you feel a sense of, you're starting to understand what it was all about?
Well, I think the first reality check comes when you land in Da Nang and you see every building is surrounded by sandbags. It's not the normal type of scenery you expect to see anymore. Everything is built up for protection.
Yeah. Yep. And so then you're going on patrols with your company?
Well, the cap unit just consisted of 10 Marines and 1 foreman.
Okay.
During the day, we would clean weapons, sleep, eat, get resupplied by helicopter. Would run 1 or 2 patrols, day patrols, and just scout out the area, really looking to see if we can see any sign that maybe the night before enemy had passed through.
Yeah.
At night, we would divide into 2 teams. We would send in our coordinates where those 2 teams were to be located that night to our company headquarters. We would radio that in using a code book. And then at night, we would sit on our ambush sites. Most of the time, all night, sometimes at least early.
Yeah. And did you have
Our job was to interrupt VC Viet Cong communications in and out of way.
okay. And did you have a sense of the war kind of above your pay grade? Are you thinking about this as kind of defending democracy? Or
I,
is it for you just about, you know, your friends and their deaths, and you're now kind of walking in their shoes and figuring it out for yourself?
well, I think certainly defending democracy was part of my thought in October. It's probably a little bit immature, but I was thinking of payback
Yeah.
for my friends. And of
Mhm.
course, there were already thousands of Americans that had died there, but these two really hit home to me. And
Yeah.
they really understand better in my mind that there were lots of young men sacrificing themselves for our country.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that went away after I was there for just maybe a month, because then the most important factors were staying alive and keeping my buddies alive.
Mhm.
That was the foremost thing in our mind. And
Mhm.
I thought I would go over there and I'd see the big picture and know what's going on. All I knew was what was going on in my little world with these 10 Marines in this corner,
Yeah.
and just taking care of each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So many people have tried to make sense of Vietnam. It was a mystery then, and it's kind of a mystery today. And so I didn't know if you got over there and anything clicked and it all made sense, or not.
it made sense what they were, for me, or what they were asking us to do,
Yeah.
but how that fit into the overall climate
Yeah.
and over there. Uh, I guess I felt like I trusted our government. They put us there for a reason. And was the reason a good one? Maybe that still remains to be determined.
Yeah.
But I'm certain it's a sad period of my life when I think about some of the things I experienced there,
Yeah.
and the people. You know, the people, the innocent South Vietnamese people who just, they just want to be left alone and live their life. But they had communists infiltrating, coming in and threatening them and killing them if they didn't bow to their will. And then here these are Americans fighting these communists. And I think they would rather everybody, the communists and the Americans, just go away and leave them alone. That would be their preference.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want people coming and fighting back and forth in our neighborhood and stray bullets killing our children.
Yeah. That's right.
Our parents are relevant.
Yeah. And how long then were you in Vietnam? This is 69.
In Vietnam, only about 10 months. Now,
Okay.
normally the Marine would serve 13 months,
Okay.
but I had two instances that helped, I guess, move that forward. One is I was wounded in August of 1970. I did not have life-threatening wounds, but it was going to keep me from returning to active duty for a while.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about that? Were you on patrol and this was just a routine thing, or?
The booby trap while on
Okay.
patrol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was also during August, and it was probably started before that. I was just so down the totem pole, I didn't know it, but they were starting withdrawals.
Hmm.
And I think any Marine that had maybe a certain number of months in country, they were going to let them go back
Hmm.
soon than their normal 13-month tour. So normally for Marine, 13 months, but for me it was about 2.
Okay. And that had to do with your injury, and that was a booby trap. Um, you said there were kind of two factors that contributed to that.
So the other factor was the early withdrawal of
Okay,
Marines.
gotcha. I gotcha.
I
Yeah,
guess they said Roberts has enough. He's been here enough number of months,
yeah,
and those maybe below a certain number of months. If you were only there 2, 3, or 4, maybe those are the ones that you kept longer.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, surviving for 10 months in Vietnam is a heck of a thing. And what did you think after 10 months? Did you feel like, yeah, I'm ready to go back?
I was probably ready to go home anytime after about 2 months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, but
Yeah, you were ready to go home. I know it.
I was there a very short time when we made our first contact with the enemy.
Yeah,
And we killed 3 BC on December 25th, 1969, in an ambush. And while I'm sitting there, I'm looking at their bodies, and I'm thinking 13 months is a really long time. And
yeah,
anything could happen.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Um, and, and were you told ahead of time that it would be 13 months?
I knew it would be a 13-month tour.
And so that's what you're thinking in the
I
back of
was
your
thinking,
mind.
I was thinking, yes,
You're going to be here for 13 months.
13 months. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when during that 10 months were you told it's going to be 10 months and you're going to have the opportunity to go home?
Oh, that was probably no more than a week.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Up until maybe 1 to 2 weeks before I actually left the country, I was thinking I was going to complete the full tour.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, are you in a hospital before your 10 months? Are you recovering?
Uh, I was ambulatory in
Yeah.
the food, in the hospital in Foodbot
Okay.
for
Okay.
about a week. I had shrapnel in the face and legs, and I could walk almost immediately. Uh, just had bandages on my legs.
Yeah.
I also took shrapnel in the mouth, and it made eating a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. Did you write home to your family?
Probably not with the frequency that I should have, but I tried to at least get a letter out every week.
Yeah. Did you tell them about the injury?
No,
Okay.
not until I got home.
They
I,
didn't know about
I
it.
knew my mother would she she would read more into it than what there would be. I just didn't mention anything about what was going on with it.
Yes.
It was,
And
how are you doing? I'm glad to hear from you. I'm fine. That type of stuff.
yeah. And did that help you at all writing home to family? Did that give you a sense of comfort or peace?
Uh,
Even if you're not telling them what's actually going on.
well, I hate to say it, but I probably just did it because I felt like uh, it was kind of a nuisance duty that I just had to take care of. But I knew
Okay.
that I appreciate hearing from them.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so most of my letters were short
Yeah,
and to the point. I'm okay,
yeah. Do you know if any of your family still has those letters?
Uh, before my mother passed away in 1998. And just a few years later, I asked her if she kept any of those letters, and she said that she did for a while, but she has not been able to find them after a move.
Gotcha,
They probably got lost in.
gotcha. So 10 months are up. What happens?
At this point, we fly back on a commercial airline,
Yeah,
again to Hawaii, and then back to California. And I'm not 100% certain. It might have been Travis Air Force Base. But then they took us to San Diego. And in San Diego, we spent, I guess, 4 or 5 days. And
how did you feel when you got back to San Diego? Do you remember that feeling of the plane landing?
I remember better that plane taking off from Da Nang and leaving
Hmm.
here.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's when it hit you.
when I could look down and see Vietnam receding behind me, that was a great feeling.
Yeah,
And I guess landing in California was more anticlimactic for me.
yeah,
The takeoff from Da Nang was exhilarating.
yeah, yeah. And so then what happens after San Diego?
Well, we get in San Diego and we're going through the Marine Corps was very good to me. They gave me several options. Uh, they gave me the chance to still go to Quantico if I wanted to become a lieutenant. Because I had only about 16 months in the Marine Corps, I was only entitled to 2 years geography. they said, if you want to stay around here and we'll give you a light job or something to do for 2 months, but that way you can get 18 months in the Marine Corps. And then you'll get 3 years of G. And then they said, and you can also stay, I was a corporal at this point, and they said, you can also stay in the Marine Corps. And they were really trying to encourage us to stay in the Marine Corps. I think they were really trying to hang on to their combat veterans. But we were going through different seminars. Just one example is the LAPD came down and gave a 1 or 2 hour seminar to returning Marines. They wanted us to go in the police force in Los Angeles. We would go to a police academy for 6 months. And I remember they said when you started the police academy, they pay you $930 a month. Well, that to me was a lot of money in 1970.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of us joked about it. We said, we just came back from being shot at. Let's not go to LA and join the police department and get shot at again.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you, Robert, what was going through your head? Do you remember what you were thinking? You know, you're faced with the possibility of a career in the Marine Corps. You're faced with a career in LAPD. You didn't want to be shot at again.
No, not anymore. I didn't. Oddly enough, in Vietnam, that was the last time I pulled the trigger on a weapon until about 3 years ago.
Okay. And so you decided then there in California, I'm done with the military. You did not, I'm guessing you did not go to Quantico. And
well, I decided I wanted to really return to college.
Yeah.
And try to take it more seriously. And I did. And I did become a better student.
Did you take advantage of that 2 months to get the GI Bill? You were saying?
No, I went ahead and left.
Okay.
I was feeling kind of physically and emotionally drained.
Yeah.
At that point. I just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
So later I regretted making that decision because I could have used that GI. But 2 years was enough to help me get through and get my bachelor's degree in chemistry at Middle Tennessee State.
Okay, so you leave California and you come back to Tennessee.
Right.
Back to your family.
Up to Nashville, and then I returned to college at Middle Tennessee State. And here, that 2 years of GI Bill was enough to help get me through.
And you went to school still wanting to be a chemist.
Still be a chemist. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a bachelor's degree in chemist, and then I got a job with the Food and Drug Division, Tennessee Department of Agriculture, and that as a chemist.
Okay. And that was your first job?
My first job. Yeah.
All right. What did you think coming home, getting your college degree at Middle Tennessee? What are your thoughts at this point about Vietnam? Did you put it all in your rear view and just say, I'm not going to think about it? I'm not going to listen to the news about it. I'm just going to pursue this chemistry degree.
I think I really didn't pay any attention to the news, and I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't talk to anyone at all about it unless they brought it up, and then I would just answer questions, and I wouldn't do anything to carry the conversation forward.
Yeah.
I do remember, again, probably a little immature on my part, but I remember when I first got home, for a couple of hours, I was really kind of upset with my family. And because they were just going on about their lives as if nothing was going on. And then I finally realized, well, actually, I was the same way before I went to Vietnam. It's so far away that they can't relate to that.
Yeah, that's right.
They're just living their lives, going to work each day. And I was doing the same thing before I went. So.
Yeah. And also, Robert, you didn't help them out with your letters home.
I didn't.
You didn't give them much to go on.
Right. My letters were very benign.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I did that mainly because of my mother. I didn't want to worry more. And I still remember the look on my mother's and father's face when they took me to the airport in Nashville. And this is right before I'm going to staging battalion. And now this, I'm going to Vietnam. This is going to be the last time I might ever see them.
Yeah.
And I remember I started to go out to get on the airplane, and I turned around and I walked back and hugged them both again.
Yeah.
It hit me at just that moment. This might be the last time I ever see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure that was going through my mother's mind too. And I could see it in her eyes.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to write anything that would worry her.
Can you talk a little bit about your homecoming? Because this is a sensitive issue for Vietnam veterans
Mhm.
coming back for Vietnam, how they were treated by their neighbors and other Americans. For you yourself, coming back to Middle Tennessee, what was your experience like?
Well, certainly my family they were happy to see me, and just glad that I was home and safe and had friends. Uh, but I do remember in our airport in Houston, this is when I was after San Diego. I have now been discharged from the Marine Corps and I'm going home, but I had a layover in Houston before the flight to Nashville.
Yeah.
And at that point, you could still look at my face and you could see that something had happened to me. It was still some stark feeling going on my face. And one person walked by and looked at me and said, "Just too bad they didn't kill you." Yeah. So I don't know what brought that about. And I didn't say anything back. I just ignored him.
So much anger at that war, and people handled it so badly.
It only takes a few
It only takes a few
make it
to
better.
leave a lasting mark, you know.
Yeah.
So many of our Vietnam veterans have never been welcomed home. And so many of our Vietnam veterans have never been thanked for their service. Yeah, yeah. And anything at college, Robert? Do you remember taking classes at Middle Tennessee and anybody bringing up Vietnam or any protests on campus?
I don't remember any protest on campus, but
Okay.
I would see them on television, and I'd see on television people burning their draft cards and things like that. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that there are people out there who had sincere convictions in what they were doing and felt like they were doing the right thing. But I do believe the majority saw the protests as just an opportunity to go party and have fun. I'm going, hey, let's go to the protest. They're going to have some grass. Let's go smoke some weed. I think there were people who truly followed their convictions, and there were ones who didn't have sense enough to realize that what they're doing is getting American servicemen killed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're a chemist, you're working for Tennessee Agriculture,
Yes.
and you're living next to your family and friends. Is life good for you at this point?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no.
Yeah.
I think I had some marital issues.
When did you get married, Robert? After Vietnam?
Yeah, yes, June 1972.
Okay.
Had one daughter at the end of 1973. Continued working, but we were just not the right two people, I guess, to be married to each other.
Okay.
She was pretty, so I asked her to marry me without thinking about other things. And
Yeah.
she's convinced that Vietnam is part of the problem, and it may be.
It was for a lot of veterans, to be sure. Absolutely.
I certainly found that I became impatient
Mhm.
for certain circumstances.
Yeah.
I guess I expected people to do something as soon as I told them to do it, because I was used to doing something as soon as I was told to do it.
Mhm.
The Marine Corps teaches you certain things that work well in the military, but they're not always good for uh, private life.
Yep. Yep. And so how long do you stay in Tennessee?
Um, well, I made the decision to go to graduate school.
Okay.
So I left Nashville at the end of 1979 and entered graduate school at the University of Tennessee in January 1980.
All right. So you're a Vol.
I'm a Vol.
All
Yeah.
right.
Uh, I finished the end of '84, defended my dissertation, and I went to work for a company that was called Conoco,
Yeah.
rated, but I was in their coal research division, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Okay.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for almost 5 years and worked there.
Yeah. I was raised outside of Pittsburgh along
Oh,
the Allegheny River. So
okay.
what made you want to go to grad school, Robert? What was that decision about?
Uh, I just, I attended chemistry conferences and I just felt like earning a PhD was going to open doors that otherwise would be closed to me.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do legitimate research. I probably needed an advanced degree in it.
Yeah.
And I knew if I waited any longer to do it, I'd probably never do it. As you can see, I've done everything later than what everybody should have. You know, I joined the Marine Corps at 22 when most young men were doing it at 18 or 19. I should have finished my bachelor's degree in '68, but I finished in '72. At least I took graduate school very seriously and finished in under 5 years, which is, for Tennessee, it's only about 6 years to get a PhD after
Yes.
the bachelor in chemistry.
Yep. Yeah, that chemistry set bit you hard as a kid.
It did.
And made you want to do some research, some serious research. And so then you get your PhD from the University of Tennessee in what year?
1983.
Okay. And then where do you go? You went to Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I worked for Conoco for almost 5 years.
Yep.
I didn't like working for Conoco. So I started looking around and then I found a job with a company called Ciba Geigy in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hmm.
So went to Greensboro, North Carolina in very early 1989. And then I worked and retired from Ciba Geigy. Although Ciba Geigy, through mergers and downsizings, became Novartis in '96 and became Syngenta in 2000. So I actually retired from Syngenta.
Okay. And did you remarry?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I married a Chinese lady.
Okay. All right. And any more kids?
No. The first wife and I, we were together through graduate school.
Okay.
And we went to Pittsburgh. We had a second daughter,
Okay. So you have two sisters and you have two daughters?
which is 2 daughters. Now the
Okay.
sisters have since both have passed away.
Okay.
One was older, one was younger, and I lost both of them in 2022.
I'm sorry for your loss, Robert.
It- it-
That's a hard thing.
2022 was a rough year for us.
Yeah.
My second wife's mother passed away. My older daughter's father-in-law passed away. And now I lost both my sisters.
Hmm.
Up year.
Hmm.
Now both my daughters one lives about 3 miles away, and the other lives about 25 miles away. And they live with their families, so they're close to them.
That's nice. It's nice to have family close. And so after North Carolina, then do you move back to Pennsylvania?
No, I never, well, other than the visit, I never,
Okay.
that's the time I lived in Pennsylvania was that about 4.5 years. Roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've-
Okay.
Once I came to North Carolina, I still live here. I will never leave North Carolina because both my daughters are here. And
Gotcha. Gotcha. And retired. And looking back on it, and reflecting on the Vietnam War, are you glad that you volunteered? Are you glad that you enlisted of your own free will and went and fought in this war?
Yes. I think look over my life, whatever I may have accomplished that's good, There's nothing that honors me more than the young guys that I served with and knowing them in Vietnam. These are some of the greatest men, and they were young men then, I've ever had the opportunity to get to.
Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing your story with us. It's been an honor just talking to you this morning.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell a little bit about that.